Volunteering. Volunteering is getting volunteers to do anything is a blessing. Retaining them is very hard. You have to smooth them. You have to cuddle them. You have to encourage them to, if your religion, serve the Lord. Well, that only works so far, because after a certain point, volunteering, you got to reward them. You mean you got to bribe them? Yeah, something like that. I belong to organizations, and for decades, as a volunteer, well, yeah. And I would attend one group, and we would eat at this restaurant. Every month we would eat at the same restaurant, and the food was great and cheap. Yeah, it's better than going to McDonald's. And then they closed. Wow. And oh yeah, hey, we're gonna be moving way down there. You're gonna come up and be a volunteer again? It's a 3-hour drive, one way. No, it's not local. Oh, but yes, it's 3-hour drive round trip. No, that's not right. That thing. Another organization I belong to, a couple of them. I was a member of the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers in Chicago. You know how hard that is to get people when the quote you're moving from film to video, where houses had to change over to buying video equipment instead of film equipment. How many houses basically went out of business? How many members of those houses went out of business? They did not transfer their knowledge into video. Of course, at that time, video equipment was a 3/4 inch and great big cameras and that thing. I mean, people couldn't afford $40,000 for a video camera, and then you had to transfer that over to it, and then you had to buy the right equipment to do precision work with everything. And a lot of people couldn't do that. Thank God for Adobe. Yes, Adobe Production. Thank God for Adobe to bring out digital. You went from VHS and you transferred it to the digital. You went from analog, you transferred that to digital. It was a little expense, but you could do it. Then Canon XL came out. That's digital. Well, that was great. And you got a little itty bitty tape about that big instead of a big tape like this. Heavy tape. If you ever look at 3/4, get a little tape like that. And that's digital. You can transfer that over into a laptop, usually a workstation like the one I'm using right now. And it all was digital, as I said, Adobe. And then other people started bringing out digital editing, which great. Sound wasn't that great, but hey, then you transferred your sound equipment over that thing. But back to volunteering again. It is hard to keep a volunteer. Yes. Now I'm in something called Willow Creek's Computer Connection on Saturday as a volunteer. But why? Because it's a challenge. It's a challenge trying to figure out why something like this laptop here doesn't work. There's something wrong with it. Something really on the board has gone poof. Yes. And well, I would tell you one thing right now. You have to figure all this out. And you're a volunteer. Is there anything? Well, it keeps my mind active. That's what at my age, that thing. We used to have volunteers for the church. Sure, we get together, say, once a month at a great big meeting, and you haul all the stuff into that, and somebody sets it up, and somebody does this, and somebody does that. And then it was no more fun. Of course, to me, it really wasn't any fun. But basically, why did it simply stop? Members moved further away. Members didn't want to make that 2-hour trip. Like I would make a 2-hour trip to go to meetings that I belong to organizations. I belong to one right now. I belong to one tonight. We're getting together, and there's 20 people showing up for dinner. Go back 10 years, it would have been 200 people showing up for dinner. Go back 50 years, you might have 400 people showing up for dinner. Now think about that. Things change. Volunteers change. Maybe they don't want to spend the money each thing. Tonight, we're going to have a bunch of 50-year members to this thing. A few years ago, we would have had maybe 50 people show up as 50-year members, or 60-year members, or 65. Tonight, they're part of 20. Ouch. That's all, of course, we're all volunteer anyway. And I've been volunteer for almost 35 years. I got 15 more years to go, and then I will have my 50th year. Then I get to be in it for, well, being a 50-year member, you get to be a member of an organization that's free. But that's the volunteer thing. That is always hard. Churches find it always hard. This staff, it's fun to say be the front of the house and maybe handle the video equipment and the sound equipment and be able to activate the board for lighting and that. You set it up. But your volunteers, it's great for a while. Even if you give them different assignments. Today you're doing video, next week you're going to do the sound, you're going to handle a board, and it's all volunteer. It's all volunteer. And you smooth them, and you basically, the Lord will see good things for you. Can He get me the winning lotto numbers for next week? Wow, I could make $400 million with those numbers. Oh, well, the Lord doesn't work that way. Your Lord better work that way. I'm paying my $2. I want something for it. Oh, I tell the Lord I will cut him in. Right. But again, volunteers are very hard to find. It's great for a while, then it's not. It's great coming early for church or staying later, then it's not. Not only I have to learn that, not that I have to know every piece of equipment, but what happens if a volunteer doesn't show up? Whoops. Who wants to speak? Well, I handle the equipment back here. And if something goes wrong, I'm the lab tech. I have to not only know how to operate, I know how to repair if something goes wrong, to be able to figure it out. It's like having a backup computer. I may never need it, but I need to have a backup computer. Backup camera. Today, you can go buy a camera for under $100 that can do the same thing as a XL that costs $2,000 or $2,500 in 2005. Now you can buy the same camera for under $100, and it does more, and it's in 4K. But again, volunteers are very hard. You almost basically don't need to have a person handle a camera. You could actually have a switcher, which I think I have a switcher, where you can switch between 4 other cameras going into a laptop who goes into streaming. And all you're doing is sitting there pressing a button or moving a switch, and that's it. But still, volunteers are nice. And they're young. The older ones simply say, I've done this. Well, as I said, computer connection. I've been doing it for 5 years, and every week it's a challenge because you're dealing with old equipment. And old equipment has a habit of not working. As one guy found out last week. It worked, the video went on to it, and then it didn't. Oh, very likely something burned out. Yeah. You look at the capacitors on the board, you look at this, you look at that, and you're hoping that. But, they're volunteers. And as at the church, computer connection, gone through a lot of volunteers. We just got a new volunteer in. Yes, she wants to learn. How long will she be there? She's basically replacing the 4 other people that volunteered for about a month. And you got your key people who are always there. It's a challenge. And beyond that point, as I said, well, as volunteers, we prepared computers for school children. We give them to other grade schools, and for children to have, or the Chicago Police Department. Before the pandemic, we've rehabilitated 50 or 100 of them and gave them to the Chicago Police Department, who gave them to school children so they could have a computer at home. With Chicago Police paid for the free Wi-Fi, but so they didn't have to go outside their homes and possibly get shot. Well, that's a big problem in Chicago. School children are killed routinely. Yeah. And they wouldn't have to carry something, right? And we feel good about ourselves as volunteers. But don't they know about you? But again, I was off for a couple months because dear old car died, and I had to borrow money to get myself another one. But as a volunteer, I got to keep my little brain active, and that is basically other people. They're there. They've been there for a long time. They're used to computers. You got some pretty sharp minds on this stuff, trying to figure this stuff out. Why things like this thing fails. What side this thing fails? Well, a couple keys don't work on this laptop here. You keep pounding the key, basically nothing happens. I don't think I have backspace on there. Some of the top keys don't seem to work very well. The little ball you have here for moving this cursor around. But I'm so used to having stuff that doesn't work. That's basically, they basically red dotted and said, well, we can't fix this. I said, can I have it? They said, sure. These things don't work on it, but, as I said, something's better than nothing, and I had nothing. But, okay, I got something from the church as a volunteer, which is great, But, of course, this is the same church I shop I shop for food. That's one of the other benefits of going to that church. They have a food bank. Yeah, they have a lot of volunteers. Hopefully they have a lot of volunteers. That, as I said before, it's fun for the first couple of weeks. Is it fun for the next couple of weeks? And they can't get the volunteers. They can't get the volunteers to volunteer to serve in the store or stock shelves. To pack up the goods. You can't trust the clients. You can't trust the clients. clients will take more off the shelf than they deserve. Oh, I have to do it. I got a sick grandmother. Yes, I noticed your Lexus is sitting out in the parking lot. Well, again, volunteers. So they've always had a volunteer. I worked in the thing as the church as a volunteer, and the turnover was always there. You had the dedicated people working for the Lord, you might say, volunteering to help the more unfortunate people, but the turnover was great. And we got to remember that most of the volunteers, are retired. Maybe members of the church who have decided to volunteer. It is hard. It is very hard to get volunteers. And you have to, as I said, you have to smooth and cuddle them and making sure they're happy and give them other things to do.